Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. My name, of course, is Chris White, and this is the LinkedIn Live program for pre-sales professionals and pre-sales leaders. And these are live conversation, folks. As I like to say, these conversations are by design, unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. And I'm joined today by someone who is no stranger to the pre-sales community. He is a longtime sales engineer who a few years ago, we talk about going into sales as being the dark side. I'm going to suggest that he went further to the dark side and joined a software vendor that actually develops and provides software to the sales engineer and the pre-sales community called Reprise. His name, as you can see online, is Paul Vidal. He is the VP of Solutions Engineering. Paul, welcome, my friend. Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this conversation. Hopefully I will not make too many mistakes. As you said, it's unscripted, so we'll see what happens.
There's no such thing as mistakes on this show because it's unscripted and unrehearsed. It's all designed to be organic, as I like to say. Now, we're going to be talking about demo programs, and I have to be honest, when you and I first chatted, I don't know, a month or so ago, and you told me, well, Chris, you know, I'm seeing more and more organizations trying to create demo programs, and I've learned a lot over the past couple of years. I have to admit, this was a term that was somewhat new for me. So and that's why I was so excited to have you on the show. So you could educate me a little bit more on this idea of demo programs, and hopefully that'll be insightful for the audience. By the way, speaking of which, Paul, let me just say a quick hello to anybody who might be out there. Folks, we don't see who's out there, so if you do care to say hello, please feel free to do so. If you have any questions for Paul or myself, of course, I invite you to share as well. So let's start to pick this apart a little bit, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, help me and the audience understand what does life sort of look like without a demo program, and why did this idea of demo programs even come to be a thing?
That's a good question. So it's funny because demo programs were not widely implemented for years, and I think I ended up in a situation where, out of necessity, we had to implement some sort of those transversal teams that would serve the SE community. Like when I was at Hortonworks Cloudera, the problem that we were having was just a matter of size of the infrastructure that is needed in order to be able to demonstrate the product. And you see this in big organizations. But what I'm seeing more and more is, and again, this is the last 3 years, because of new technology arriving, this is being implemented more and more. Now, life without a demo program, it's kind of interesting. It's all about, you know, at the end of the day, it's about revenue and predictability. You and many people out there are educating the SE community on how to run good demos, and there's a lot of great advice out there. There's people that are following 6 Habits of an Effective Sales Engineer, I'm being told, but it's ultimately it's more of a reliant on good actors and their ability to drive a conversation. It's super important, but we never were able to really control which part of the demo, which element of the demo are interesting. Add that to the fact that it's about democratizing all of the demos that are out there. I think because we rely on those very specific artists that are very good at doing demos, the only way that we know how to make a deal work is to bring this person in and say, okay, well, I'm going to bring Paul, and he's going to do a demo of this cloud solution. And that's how we're going to make the deal. But you want to be able to reuse some of these assets that they have created in order to make the sale go further. And so little by little, adding to the fact of company like Reprise, which allows you to just scale the creation of your demos, people are starting to think about, well, actually, a demo is an asset as well. And let's find out which one are the most efficient assets. There's a lot of, this is the premise. The premise is I'm going to democratize a lot of these assets and people are just going to use it. Obviously, it never works this way, but this is the inception of these demo programs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, the first thing you mentioned is from a sense of necessity. You were with a large organization, a relatively complex environment and platform, and you had lots of people probably creating and delivering lots of demos, and you used the word control, so there was a need to have better control over what demo aspects were being used by whom. You mentioned revenue and productivity, so I do want to tap into how do demo programs help drive revenue and help with productivity, and this idea of democratizing the demos. And you mentioned sort of relying on sort of the expert individuals. So these are all the things that I want to start to unpack. When someone thinks of a demo program and somebody's thinking about maybe implementing a demo program, what are the building blocks that need to be put in place in order to build a demo program?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you which one, and then I'm going to dive a little bit more into them. So first, you need to identify your key stakeholders. Second, you need to organize the content that you want to produce out there, and there's a lot to it. And then the third one is you need to implement a governance program to make it self-correcting. The first one is super important, and actually something that we had wrong at the beginning of creating this company. I was one of the first employees at Reprise and really think through this. We had this idea that by making a platform that makes the creation of demo very easy, everybody would come in and create their own demos. And so we had this idea that every SE would come in and do some sort of customization of their own demos. That's not what's happening. You should, in hindsight, hindsight 2020, I should have known this. Like and you see this in every SE organization. Not every SE wants to build. I know I'm very much driven this way, but I know some other SEs that are extremely efficient that just don't build, but are very good at orienting the sales process. And I mean, in my team, I have a spectrum of different qualities in every individual, and super important. But the first thing that you realize is you're going to have a small pocket of power builders that are going to be very interested in building this. And then you're going to have users, and then you're going to have also a layer of approval and a layer of creative. So there's a lot of things there. But the first mistake is to think like, hey, I'm going to implement a demo program. Is what I'm going to do is I'm going to go bottom up. I'm going to give everybody a tool, and they're going to build together. It's going to be great. Doesn't work this way. You need to identify. You need to go top down first of all. It needs to be driven as an organization. I think we've also seen a lot of demo programs that were either residing in sometimes the product side of the house in small organizations, doesn't really work, or in sales enablement. This is really something that needs to be an entity of its own. And I have a lot of examples of large companies that have tried to do it without being transversal. It just doesn't really work, right? So the first thing that you need to do is really go top down, start identifying the stakeholders, and realize that if you ask any SE director for time of their SEs to build demos for your program, they will say no. They want their SEs. They want their SEs on deals. They have a bottom line and it's not like SEs have a ton of time on their calendar either. So you need to find these. You need to identify these power builders and incentivize them. And that's a thing that a good program does very well. And I'm going to talk about it when I talk about governance and performance. But think of it this way. So don't think that everybody will build. So
Yeah.
think of give them the right training and right enablement for the builders. And now you need to think about how you are going to deploy this type of program and make it available for the rest of the organization, which is the second part. Second part is organizing the content. I think you can build the best industry specific end-to-end demo of your platform, and if nobody uses it doesn't matter. If everybody's building their own stuff, it doesn't matter. If everybody's doing whatever they have on their instance, it doesn't matter. You need to make it easy for people to use. And this is where just the demo asset is not going to be sufficient. I mean, as much as I would like everybody to just use Reprise for everything, this is not the way the world works. You need to have different type of assets, and I often see it's going to be some sort of a small videos, some sort of a deck, an in-depth sandbox, and some shorter demos. So you really need to think about the organizations and how you want to break down the different assets that you have. So I've seen this done by sales play. So you start thinking, okay, this is what I want to push this this fiscal year. I want to push this particular plays. So let's organize this per play. I've seen this organized by vertical, telco, Pfizer, that kind of stuff. And I've seen it organized by product as well. So you really need to think about this. Within each and every one of these categories, you need to think about the different type of assets that you have. There's probably assets that are kind of standard. There's assets that are on the other end of the spectrum, completely bespoke for a specific opportunity. And there's the in-between, right? So think about what these different assets and inform your end user of like what they're going into. When I was Cladera and in the Ghost team, we had this concept of golden, silver, and bronze demo. This is the type of stuff that you need to think of and manage expectation from your demo users. And then last part is really thinking about the governance and something that I like to call the demo life cycle. Like how do you start by the inception of a demo, and how do you make sure that you measure its performance? And this is when you actually get, after all this effort, get more bang for your buck, is you start thinking about, all right, now that I know which assets are associated with more winning opportunities, how do I optimize them? Or you see things like, wow, this particular industry demo is very, very well used in pretty much every, like 95% of the ops that I have. Let's spend some time on this. And now you're starting to be data driven in the way that you are analyzing your demo program.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear you talking about is really being more intentional and more strategic with how the organization thinks about how to best present and demonstrate the solution, and measures the effectiveness of how they are presenting and demonstrating the solution, and really getting everyone on the same page and getting everybody organized. I mean, I'm thinking back to when I was in the field. Now, this was quite a few years ago, but it was sort of the wild, wild west. And to your point, everybody had, and I'm not even sure we use the term demo asset, if I can be fully honest, but we had demos and scripts and configurations, either in a small virtual machine or on our desktop or on some drive somewhere. And whenever there was a demo, we were sort of pulling and grabbing and scrambling, and sometimes we hit the mark and sometimes we didn't. And I just love this idea of a demo program, because to me, it really gives this critical element of the sales process, of the go-to-market team, a strategic seat at the table. If I can use that term, we need to be strategic about how we organize ourselves around how we present and demonstrate and the assets that we use, et cetera. So I just love this. What are some of the other mistakes that people have made in this idea of demo programs?
So first of all, the first mistake is thinking that it's not needed. I think that, look, the SaaS selling business and the selling specifically has been optimized so much. There is so many, MedPick, they had a letter every year. So like we were very much into figuring out to the minute detail how we can think about an opportunity, right? It's been over optimized when this is not what your buyer necessarily care about. It's really funny because a buyer cares about, buying the product at the end of the day, right? And yes, there's relationship, and I understand. Like, just don't at me in LinkedIn. Everybody hates me now. From that is a sales enablement, but it's been over optimized, and somehow we don't optimize the demonstration of the product. Like I said this a million times.
So good.
The product that you build to solve your customers' problems is not the same product that you would build if you were to demo it. This is fundamental, right? If you were a product team and you were optimizing your product in order for it to demo, you would build it completely differently, right? Simple example, you would pre-populate it with data, but obviously you don't want to do this for your customer. They want to be able to import their own stuff. So the first mistake is thinking that we over-optimize on the sales process and forget about the assets that your prospect and customer care about, right? So you really need to think about this. And I really firmly believe that this is going to make a significant difference in your ability to sell. Because, again, this is where the edge is. Go ahead. You were about to say something.
Well, I just want to interject there because I think what you said is just so profound. And it's this idea that the demo is so often overlooked. And we spend so much time working on the product, optimizing the product. We spend so much time optimizing the process, the sales process, and automating the sales process. And you're right, the demo is so often overlooked, but products aren't made to be demoed. Products are made to be used, to be implemented and used. And so, but the demo is one of the most critical aspects of the sales process. So why is it that we're overlooking it? And therein lies the driver and the importance of thinking about a demo program and thinking about being more intentional and strategic about how you demo. So I just loved it. I mean, we have product management, right? Why wouldn't we have demo management? And therein lies the idea of a demo program. So, by the way, Paul, there was a question that just came in from Alex McFerrin, which I think is worth mentioning. And by the way, folks, if any of you have any other questions or care to say hello, please feel free to do so. So, question from Alex: any tips on how you sell a methodical demo program that is data-driven to upper management for buy-in? In my last position, I had a hard time getting the non-process oriented CEO out of the way. Any advice for Alex and anybody else who might be listening on how do individuals like Alex, maybe SE leaders, sell this internally?
It's a good question. So I'm going to respond in two ways. There's I don't know if you mean this exactly, Alex, but you say create a custom demo for every opportunity. I think that's not scalable, and that's actually not a great idea. I think I've said this before. If you do create too much of a customized demo, you can actually lose the audience. It's kind of creepy. Like, you don't want to put a photo of your prospect vacation in Ibiza. We just don't do this. Like realize that the person in front of you is also a human being and just knows that you're trying to do. But you need to go have the same language, but not to the point that it needs to be extremely customized, unless you are in like the end of the funnel and you're creating a POC or whatever, right? Get upper management buy-in. This is tough, man. Like this is why I am on this live LinkedIn, because I do think that this is something that people are overlooking. My advice is you can approach it many ways. I think one of the way that works well, but it's perhaps for larger organization, is looking at either the cost of infrastructure and management of the demo environment is one thing, and the cost of like building demos from an SEO organization. I think this is something that usually resonates. And the other way is to somehow make people understand how quicker a sales cycle is when you leverage good demo assets. And that's also something that is doable by technology. I don't want to talk just Reprise. Like it's everybody in the demo creation industry. Being able to democratize this not only to your sellers, being able to give that to your prospect and customers in their hands is extremely important. And what I find is to just do a little bit of piloting of this methodology, show some actual ROI during the pilot, and then deploy that at larger scale. That's how people do it. Hopefully that answers your question, but it is a bit of a disruptive mind to think. And I'm also going to say one last thing is there's always a conflict of priority of what you optimize in a sales cycle, especially in the eyes of a CEO. And frankly, there are organizations where they have other stuff to figure out before thinking about the demo program. Like if your seller don't really understand what they're selling at all, let's just probably focus on this first, right? And if you don't understand your ICP, probably focus on this as well, right? But once you have the cake, then you decide what kind of frosting you want to add on it. And I do think that people choose too much around again, sales methodology and less around the assets themselves.
I completely agree. The two words that came to mind for me are two words that you mentioned earlier, Paul, which is productivity and revenue. To me, what we're really talking about here is dramatically increasing the productivity of the team because they're not recreating the wheel at the beginning of every or in the midst of every opportunity. And number one. And number two, we're establishing best of breed stories, best of breed configurations, best of breed environments, and data sets even to that level that can be reused within the organization, saving people countless hours, if not days, preparing for meetings, making them that much more productive. And if we're using demo scripts, scenarios, data sets, et cetera, that have been proven to be effective, it's reasonable to suggest that we're going to be closing more deals because we're always putting our best foot forward, right? I mean, one of my favorite sayings is the best product doesn't always win. Usually it's the best demo, right? So if we're not sure, like if we're not confident that everybody in the field is putting our best foot forward every time because we've been intentional and strategic about our demos, then we're sort of rolling the dice here, right? I mean, does that resonate, Paul?
Well, there's two things that come to mind. First, it's the amount of time that people spend optimizing the first intro sales deck. Like, how much time are you spending on those 5 slides that, frankly, nobody cares about? And then you decide to spin up the old demo that hopefully works. What are you doing? It just doesn't make any sense. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing for you mentioned productivity and leading to more deals. I think again, like, and I'm a terrible buyer, right? Because I've been in this industry so long. It's just before, this is what I do before every meeting where I'm going to have a demo. I actually send an email saying, like, this is actually what I want to see covered. This is what I care about. These are my evaluation criteria. Tailor your demo to this, right? Because I don't want to see this. And there's an expectation of like people finding pain and like quantifying pain. And I know what they're doing. They have to do their disco and etc. In my opinion, right now, because everybody does it, the only thing that you can do in your pre-sales process outside of the demo that would move the needle is not mess up. Don't mess up, because everybody's already there, right? Like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you had a very advantage using the challenger sale, whatever methodology you had. You don't anymore. The playing field is leveled. So focus on the demo. So again, I'm bad. I know all the different things, but I ask exactly what I want to see. And you're not going to believe this. I was shopping for software, and the person that I see in front of me, I was very much deep. I'm the executive buyer. I was deep into specific stuff that I wanted to see because I wanted to optimize my SE processes. And this person interjected me, told me to stop and say, if I could just finish my whole demo, then I can answer your questions. And the guy lost me entirely. I'll send you the clip at some point, but it's like best practice.
In other words, let me say what it is that I wanted to say, and then I'll entertain what it is that you wanted to see. But basically, it's all about me before it's anything about you. Love that. By the way, Julian, thank you for the comments. He had a few comments. He mentioned the notion of putting a good demo content in the prospect's hands to pilot the solution, and
I read that. It's a bit about like the balance between discovery and Julien. By the way, Julien and I go way back. So hi, Julien. I hope you're doing well. I'm coming hot on a very specific perspective. Like in everything, I'm a bit more nuanced than this, and it's true. Like you can't just go and just open the product and say pick and choose, right? It's obviously important to do everything that you teach, that everybody teaches around, like making sure that you understand exactly what's going on, like, and really understanding what you need to show, right? Doing disco and so on and so forth. 100%. Of
course.
But the point that I was trying to make is not necessarily just forget about all this. The point that I'm really trying to make is I will say it again, is there's been a lot of optimizations there. And if you optimize the system at 80%, the last 20% that you want to optimize are actually going to be 10 times harder, and your yield is not going to be as significant. Whereas you have this field of demos that haven't been optimized at all. And half of the effort that you put on optimizing the 20% will yield so much more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the lens that I'm seeing it.
Hopefully that makes sense. I do want to go back to something that Julian said, though, because he mentioned putting good demo content in the prospect's hands to pilot the solution. I'm curious, when we talk about demo program, when you talk about demo programs, does it include demos used at the different stages? Does it include, let's call it top of funnel introductory demos or vision creation demos? Does it include demos that I can use as a sales engineer in a live demo? Does it include maybe leave behinds or playground, the sort of the playground demo, et cetera, or the sandbox demo? Talk us through how that each one of those sort of fit in this idea of a demo program.
That's thanks for bringing that up. The answer is yes. It encompasses the whole funnel. the best demos organization that I've seen, they have clearly identified that is going to be different type of assets depending on where we are in the journey. And we're talking about, there's some organization that actually have demonstration centers where you get in to show the machine, right? Before you get to actually show the machine working, like how do you get there? So I'm just reading the question. It just makes me laugh. So there is multiple demos that you need to have throughout your funnel. And you need to think like the way that I think about it when you build a demo program, and you need to think about your consumers. Now, that's a very big distinction. If you are going to target the rest of your SE team and you're part of a transversal organization, or you're really trying to have something like customer facing. The customer facing, and I've seen two types of organization, right? The organization that is serving external demonstration has a completely different approach. And usually the way that demos are set up is maybe white paper, video, click-through, and then hands-on lab, and then potentially something that is bespoke or customized, right?
Yeah.
That's more a customer-facing organization. For internal-facing organization, what I've seen is, think of it of a library, like you would search for on Netflix or something along those lines, where you search for what you're looking for. It's stacked differently, and again, different type of assets. Leave behinds are one of them. Live demo are one of them. Sandbox are another one. And sometimes it's just, here's the script, go install it yourself, right?
Yeah.
So those are the two different assets that we're seeing.
Yeah. Shannon DeCarmo, nice to see you, Shannon. Thanks for chiming in. If you can't allow access to a real demo environment, our demo tools like Navatic a good substitute. Obviously, Paul, you work for Reprise, and Reprise is in this space as well. So let's address Shannon. Thank you for the question. Let's address Shannon's question just sort of a little bit more generically. Talk about how tools in this space can help with this challenge of allowing access to a real demo environment, or something that feels like a demo environment, when in fact that's not an option for a lot of companies out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of why this is being democratized, because of tools like this. So for those who are not super educated about demo creation, demo automation, there's multiple types of technologies. The first one, and the one I invented that wasn't really needed any sort of capture, was like videos. So it's micro videos that are being pushed. That's one aspect. Of course, it's less interactive, and if you like me and you have the attention span of a 5-year-old, you just not watch videos.
I'm sorry, what was that, Paul?
Exactly. Then you have guided tours. So usually it's when you do screen capturing. So you mentioned Navatic is one of them, but there's plenty out there. And this is a good substitute for top of funnel. The guided tour is interesting, but some technology make it a bit less interactive. And again, like it's linear. You don't have the ability necessarily to really showcase some interactivity. So it's super important to actually think. I'm going to come to this, right? So I'm talking about what you were sending to your customers. Yes, leave behind is interesting. Things like product tours are important, but the key here is, if you are sending simple product tours without thinking about the interactivity and the non-hero aspect of your story, you kind of lose the benefit that you get from capturing your data, your product, right? Because otherwise you might as well run a video. There is another thing that you can send is, you can, at the completely end of the spectrum is free trials. So people that are able to do the free trial. The problem with free trial is you need to be very engaged in order for it to work, or you need to approach it very simple to do this. So between the guided tour and the free trial, there is the concept of pre-populated sandbox. And that's another type of technology that you see in a demo creation category. It's the ability to recreate a sandbox. So there's multiple ways to do it, but this is super useful because the sandbox is pre-populated with data, and you can play with it like it would be the real tool, and you don't have to worry about it crashing. So
right, or anything breaking, or them messing up data. So I mean, let's address this head on. And Shannon, thank you for the clarification. For a handover to customers, how does Reprise enable this or support this? Since I mean that's who you work for. How is it that you guys do this?
Yeah, so and I think Shannon is also saying, is it just for handover for customers? No. So again, the technology that you use to capture doesn't really matter. Like, there's multiple ways that you can do this. It depends more of what the asset that you're going to build. So the way that I see people using demo creations are, and I'm going to list them. So first, sometimes product marketing uses to put it directly on the website and create these demo libraries and so on and so forth. Super easy way to scale your demo of your new platform in an unguided way. By the way, this is what we did when I was at Cloudera to showcase our Cloudera data platform. Super easy. You don't have to worry about spinning up stuff, etc. Second way that we bring used is by creating demo assets that are being run by SEs and reps. So the cool thing that you can do when you create let's say you create a demo that is guided, we have the ability to, for instance, hide the guides and just go and you just tell the story. So the thing that is super interesting here is it's a twofer, right? You get to, one, send it back to your customer, or run it live, and more importantly, you get to also educate your team and scale your team, because you have right there on the demo the talk track. So this is how you train your team. The third thing that we have is demo sandboxes. So again, customer facing would be hands-on lab, otherwise it's a live demo environment. Since people doing so many times this, it's just replace whatever you have to, the thing that you have to spin up by capturing your live demo environment. And the third one is an overlay that just modifies the data on top of an existing demo environment. And the existing demo environment can be your environment, it could be a screen capture, or it could be a sandbox. That's the way that people are using products like Reprise today. That being said, every company have decided to go a different way when it comes to what technology they chose. At Reprise, we decided to have a platform that encapsulates all of it, so that you can basically cater to every need that our customers are seeing.
Fabulous. Paul, let me push our pause button just for a moment. Folks, I'm speaking to Paul Vidal. He is the VP of Solutions Engineering for Reprise. We're talking about demo programs, why demo programs, what they are, how to engage, how to implement, and some of the benefits that people are realizing from demo programs. You know, Paul, it's interesting to me. I'm going back to sort of the three elements that you shared when we were talking about sort of the core pillars of what defines the demo program. You mentioned stakeholders, you mentioned content, and you mentioned governance. Just now, we were also talking about what I might call the use case, right? Are we talking top of the funnel, something that's on the website? Are we talking demos that have been curated internally to be used by members of the sales team to present the solution live? Are we talking about sandboxes or demo environments that can be handed over to the customer to let them sort of play around themselves and do some sort of trial or POC? Is it important to think up front as you're starting to put in place a demo program? Is it important to think which of these three areas you're going to target? And is it even possible to do more than one, or do you need to start somewhere and then build from there?
Yeah, that's very good. That's a really good question, because what I've seen in my 3-year tenure here over and over is, and this is something that is natural for human being, is whenever there's a new technology, we tend to try to retrofit it into what we've done forever, right? So every time there's a new technology, which we are seeing this with Gen AI, by the way, right now. Like I'm going to think about it. So this is what I'm seeing is people are saying, well, today I open my product and I demo my product, so I want to do the same thing. It's like, well, then you're not really leveraging this type of new technology, are you? Right? And this is what I was going back to, the interactivity and so on and so forth. So yes, I would, like I've seen so many failures of people trying to start implementing tools like Reprise and just failing because they're trying to reproduce exactly what they have today. Whereas they should think about what is the core problem, right? If your core problem is I cannot have 100 reps working on, or 3 reps for that matter, working on the same demo environment because they conflict with one another, that's a very discrete problem. Then create a scalable sandbox, right? If your problem is I have so many different tools in my belt, in my platform, and I really struggle to create different end-to-end stories, you don't need a sandbox. You need storylines, right?
Right? Love that.
If your issue is, well, actually we have a fairly good demo environment, the problem is we have 3 different verticals and I don't want to have to worry about the data that is on there. I just want to be able to change it depending on who I'm talking to. That's a different class of problem. Right? So start by thinking, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and press here, right? And then if and it could be also a dimension problem, right? I don't have the ability to efficiently multi-thread an account because X, Y, and Z. Well, this is when you're going to use some sort of leave behind, right? That tell a specific story. Start with this, and then you expand your program. And again, I got really, really lucky because I got to learn from people that spent literally like decades thinking about how to create this demo program before the technology even existed. And we're talking about like Fortune 10, Fortune 100 companies that like I really, really thought through this with like literally like tens of hundreds of people thinking about how do I demonstrate the power of my platform. And it's very clear that they have identified and categorized the type of problems that they're trying to solve. And so when I come in with the technology like this to talk to them, like, okay, you fit here and here. That's it. I mean, it's kind of the best for me because I'm like, all right, great. And then can you explain me? Can you please teach me? But yeah, that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. And don't just do the same thing that you're doing before. Otherwise, you will get the same result that you have right now.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear you saying, and by the way, I mean, this is the irony is that this is what so many of us who sell software to other industries and in other contexts tell the people that we sell to all the time, right? Which is, don't just buy a technology and throw it at an existing process, right? You need to change the way you think. You need to change the way you operate, right? There's a process side of this as well. The other thing I hear you saying is really start by clearly understanding and articulating the problem it is that you're trying to sell or solve for, right? Not just don't just throw a technology at it, which makes so much sense. There were 2 problems that came, or two questions that came to mind, and I'm going to ask them in no particular order. The first, actually, there's three more things that I want to touch on. The first is, you mentioned Fortune 10, Fortune 100 companies, but my suspicion is that this is not, this idea of a demo program is not just for the biggest enterprise software companies in the world, that there are organizations that fall into sort of the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, and really mid-sized companies that will also benefit from this idea of creating a demo program and democratizing. So is my suspicion right? And what would you say to maybe an organization that isn't sure they're complicated enough or big enough to really think about a quote, a demo program?
Copy whatever they're doing. The point that I was trying to make of like Fortune 10 and 100 is that they thought about this way before I did. And so I got to like, I had my suspicion, but I got to learn a lot. So yes, of course, it's applied to basically every software company, or every company that does software for that matter, which is basically everybody. You have to think about this type of demo programs. I think the thing that is relevant is up until technology like Reprise existed on the market, the cost of building a demo program, it was extremely expensive, because you think about it, you have to dedicate people, infrastructure, and engineers to be able to build the assets themselves. It is very costly. Now with solutions that can capture this and create every declination of assets that you want, this is being democratized. And I think that's what's changing now, and that's why you and I are speaking today. But what I want to give, like the sort of the warning that I want to give to people that are considering doing this today, because it's very attractive, and there's like we said at the beginning of our conversation, there's a lot to be gained with good demo assets in terms of your win rate and so on and so forth. Just don't go at it blindly. Don't just try to recapture your product and hope it will work. It will not. Now, obviously, this is why I built the team that I have. Like, we spend a lot of time thinking through this with you, and we have a process to level you up from what like a level 1 demo program is versus a level 5 demo program. Those are just different type of control. But really think through it first. And what I'm thinking for people that are thinking about this today, just first, like, if you want to reach out and have a conversation, I'm available. Like I don't care about how you get there, but I'm happy to talk through it. But what I would recommend is identify where there's the most money in the banana stand, right? Figure out what is you get more bang for your buck, rethink through it, and then implement that, and then iterate, right? But start from the top down and identify one large pain and move through it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thought that comes to mind for me is actually twofold. Number one, it seems to me that it would be easier to implement at least the fundamentals and the foundation of a demo program before the organization is too large and too complex, right? So if you're a mid-sized company, particularly if you have aspirations for growth, it seems to me that once you've established a well-oiled machine, right, a demo program that is providing and democratizing the assets like you've mentioned, and has created some order around how we present the solution and how we present or demonstrate the capability sort of through the pipeline, that will help organizations scale. And that will accelerate scale. Is that a fair assumption, Paul?
Yeah, you're right. So that reminds me of like when I was working on technical sales before it was cool. I had my my SE team, and Ben can remember this. I bought like the largest laptop that Apple could carry, and I had like 2 different virtual machines and like a bunch of Docker containers to just have all my ACs. My AC would carry this laptop, and they will always carry a projector in their backpack. We had massive backpacks.
I remember those days. Yep.
Did this. Maybe that's your MVP. Maybe it's scripts of spinning up your environment are your MVP. But start by thinking this way, right? Like before even getting into a technology, is like, okay, what do we want to talk about? And in 2 seconds, what I see in terms of what the stage of the demo life cycle, usually some sort of storyboarding, some sort of approval of the content, some script development, right? So the script of like what the talk track, building a demo, getting it approved, and then deploying it. Right? That's kind of like the steps that I see.
And you mentioned the governance. That's basically the governance that you were talking about.
That's the demo life cycle. The governance is more around. So first of all, when you're looking at scale, you want to implement some sort of permissioning to make sure that like, you don't step on any toes. And governance for me is more around performance and incentivization. This is the demo life cycle. It's like every demo goes through this cycle. If you start thinking in these terms, regardless of the technology that you use, and perhaps you don't even need to use technology at first, right? Then you will get this muscle memory, right? You start by starting with the process of how you create a demo, rather than just opening the product and showing the features, right? So that's it.
I just love that structure. So let's just walk through that again. So the first was storyboarding.
Yes. So this
and
is
what
where,
was the second?
So first is storyboarding. It's going to get into deeper into it. This is usually done by somebody in product, right? That had a vision around this thing. And
product marketing, typically.
Product marketing.
Maybe one of the senior sales engineers.
Yeah, in conjunction with the go-to-market organization. And so I think that's you need sales involved as well, because they need to be able to say the message that you're going to show. And then some sort of like SE brains come and like figuring out, all right, so this is kind of in high level what we want to see, right? And then once you have this, there's a step, and people skip that step all the time, which is approving the content. How many times have you been part of an SE team and you build the best demo in the world, and then the CMO and CRO are like, no, actually, we're not selling this year. Fantastic. So that never happened to me. Definitely not. But yeah, so get the content of the storyboard approved, right? And then develop the script. And again, like people are doing it backwards nowadays. They start by building the demos and then they do the script. This is not the way. Why? Because we didn't have a choice. Before demo automation, demo creation, you were like, the product is the product. What else am I going to do? I'm just going to spin it up. You have the ability to do something different. Start by the script. Start by thinking about what you are going to say. Then you get to build the asset according to the script that you decided. Then there's another layer of approval, which is, again, going back to those stakeholders. And the last thing, again, that is being forgotten is the deployment of the demos. Usually people high-five when the demo is approved, like, fantastic. And then this demo stays on the shelf, and nobody uses it, and nobody benefits from it. So make sure that whatever deployment method you have, right, it could be as simple as newsletter enablement, work with sales enablement, whatever it is. Just make sure that it's deployed. And the part of the deployment also means that you have put in place a way to measure its efficacy. So there's some sort of KPIs. They're like tying it into the sales cycle, whatever you use in your CRM, right?
Yeah.
Or the independent KPI. I've seen people pushing this into their warehouse or whatever. But these, like, if you follow these steps, regardless of the technology that you're using, and start thinking in this way, rather than I'm going to set up a demo environment and see what happens, you will start seeing results.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Think about the process more than just spinning up technology. So unfortunately, Paul, we're not going to get to all the questions I have, because as you can see, we've been at this for almost 55 minutes. And I do want to be respectful of your time. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned sales enablement. I wanted to ask you about sales enablement. I wanted to ask you about product-led growth. We're not going to get there. There were a few other things that I wanted to touch on. Here's the last question that I'm going to ask you, and then I'll ask for you for any closing thoughts. If you became an SE leader for an organization, for a software organization, why could you not live without a demo program? What about the world would not work for you if you didn't have a demo program?
I think as an SE leader, a lot of our plays are about, there's two plays. One is you need to generate revenue, and then you need to make sure that your SEs are doing something that is valuable. And in many years in the profession of being an SE or an SE leader is there's so much diversity in this profession, because it's kind of the profession that came out of nowhere, where, I mean, I literally started where somebody said, "Oh, you look like you know what you're talking about. Go talk to the customer and demo the thing." That's kind of the way it worked for all of us. But there's so much diversity and potential in this profession, which is why I'm so much in love with it. Is you need to make sure that you let your SE be the strongest at what they're doing. And I guarantee you, there are some SEs that are building demos better than anybody else. And there are some SEs that are much better at delivering those demos. There's a way for you to democratize this. Because the other thing that they don't tell you, maybe they tell you, is you are a cost center. And everything that you're going to ask is going to be seen as like, well, that's getting to the CAC, right? So you're not going to be able to have so many SEs that you have enough diversity in every team. So you're going to have to do more with less. This is the optimization play. This is making sure that your SEs are utilized in the way that they want to be utilized, and where they have the most fun, which in turn makes sure that they just don't quit and do something else because they're very well sought after. And two, you're actually going to optimize your revenue target. If that's not enough for you to like, these are literally the two tenets that are important as an SE leader. So that's the answer.
Well, and a couple of things that I'm hearing. First of all, it's just confidence. You, as an SE leader, you need the confidence to know that all your people are out there putting their best foot forward and positioning and demonstrating the solution in its best manner every single time they're dealing with customers. So that's number one. Number two is scale. You need to do more with less. And number three is you're responsible for revenue. And if you're not confident that your people are putting the best foot forward and positioning the solution in its best possible light in every context and in every opportunity, you're not likely hitting the number. So, I mean, I think to me that just sums it up. And for me, hearing what you've said today, I have a hard time now that I know what I know. I would have a hard time being an SE leader without knowing that we have a strategic, intentional demo program that was being managed in the way that you've suggested here. So, Paul, we have run out of time, my friend. I hope you will come back and visit again, because there's more to talk about in this space. There's more to pick apart here. This is I feel like this is still a relatively new idea, and it needs some more attention. Any final words or thoughts before we close things up today?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the bottom line and so on and so forth and why it's important, but this is not why I'm doing. This is really fun to implement. Really, really fun. Like building these new processes in mind and optimizing is why I wake up in the morning. And the tech that is out there for you to build insane demos is available. It wasn't there before. Like, you're going to be able to build something that you're going to be super proud of. You're going to have a team that is going to be super excited about doing it. at the end of the day, that's why I have the energy in the morning, right? Yes, I care about revenue, but this is fun. So you should really think about it, because it's probably the most fun project that you're gonna have in your SE team. So anyway,
I love that. I love that. I mean, what I hear you saying is that it just makes us better as sales engineers. It makes us better at what we love doing, which is giving great demos and closing deals, right? I mean, and we can do more now than we've ever been able to do before, and at scale and with speed. So I absolutely love that. Paul, thank you so much for being here, sir. It's been a pleasure. I do hope that you'll come back and visit. To those of you who asked questions, thank you so much. For those of you who hung around, so glad you joined us. If you caught the video recording, thank you so much for sticking around to the end as well. Again, if you like these, I invite you to follow hashtag Tech Sales Advice. Of course, you can go to techsalesadvisors.com. And Paul Vidal, your website is reprise.com. So folks, I encourage you to check out reprise.com as well. And Paul, is it fair to say that you would welcome anybody to connect with you on LinkedIn who has more questions?
Absolutely. As you can see, you don't have to twist my arm too much for me to talk about this. So
fabulous. Well, Paul, thank you so much for being here. Hang around backstage just for a minute as I say a few parting thank yous to everyone else. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you on next week's Tech Sales Advice. Be well.